Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is brought to you by Excite Medical and the DRX 9000, Chiro HD, Softwave, Bridge Financial, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, The Chiro Speaking Company, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now, let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 628 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Travis Corcoran. And if you want to hear about his book, Restoring Reason, and how he created the franchise Top Chiro, stay tuned for the full episode. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Today I have Travis Corcoran coming on with me, episode 628. I can't believe it that we've been running this hard this long. Almost 7 years in the making. Pretty cool, right? But Travis is somebody that's I've known almost 2 decades. Super inspirational guy. He's done a lot for this profession, done a lot for himself, and stands on a lot of values that most people don't know. So we're going to clear the air today about some things when it comes to philosophy, liberal arts, critical thinking. And he's been planting a lot of trees. We call them Top Chiro trees. And he's growing a forest of chiropractic out there for everybody. So I'm really excited about this episode. But before we get into Travis and this deep discussion and things that matter to chiropractic and chiropractors, we're going to tell you our big why. First things first is we protect freedom of speech with this show. I don't know if you guys know how important that is, but people have been shadow banned, silenced, traffic throttled, all the things above. And we would never do that to anybody because we know what it feels like. And I think freedom of speech is very important to the future, especially for this healthy world supported by chiropractic. And as we go to that, we believe in medical freedom and family health freedom. They're not the same things, but if you want to know more about that, connect with a chiropractor and they'll guide you on all topics that you need, specifically Top Chiro. Go find them. Travis and his team will do a fantastic job of helping you and your family find the solutions for your needs. And as we get down the line, we do believe in protecting the sacred trust. It's BJ Palmer's last words. If you do not know what that means, go to our show notes and check it out. You're going to learn more about chiropractic than you previously did, I guarantee you. And we support subluxation-centered chiropractic. I know I shouldn't have to say that, but they're taking this out of the schools, and that's a big part of our conversation today that we'll be talking about. And we believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence. We believe that when man or woman, the physical, gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. And with that, this is episode 628. Travis, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you again, Jim.
Yeah, man, we had a chance to spend some time together in Mexico City at the Berkshires.
Yeah, it was a great time. Great conference. Scott and Aram did such an amazing job.
Yeah, man, that place was on fire. And I had a chance to sit in on your talk, and I learned a whole lot, and I took notes, and just a really fundamental thing that all people in chiropractic need to pay attention to. And gosh, it was just, I could see the whole room engaged and taking notes during your talk. So great job, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the good words.
Yeah, and today I think you're in at the center of the chiropractic universe.
Yeah, Sherman. I'm here in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Yeah, as you can probably hear from the revving motorcycles and car alarms in the background here.
Yeah. And I'll see you in a couple days too out there at the Lyceum. So looking forward to that.
Nice.
Yeah. So let's jump right into this. I think this was spurred by something that was posted on social media about philosophy and how people in leadership positions at these schools are removing bit by bit the lexicon of the language of the profession from these institutions. And I know that that's a big part of your reasoning and why you do what you do. So let's just talk a little bit about how that's happening.
How it's happening that philosophy is being removed from the curriculum? Well, yeah, there's so much to say about that. It becomes easy to remove when so few people understand it, right? If you don't understand something, then you wouldn't see the value in it. That's why someone might not choose chiropractic care. If they don't understand what chiropractic care is, why would they choose it? They don't see any value in anything they don't understand. So when you get administrative leadership within the schools that doesn't understand chiropractic or its philosophy, well, then it's very easy for it to be taken away because they don't value it the way they value pleasing the accrediting bodies, pleasing their parents, pleasing medical colleagues, insurance carriers, whatever it might be. However, things would be very different if they actually understood the chiropractic philosophy and its principles. And when I read your Facebook post, it was very clear to me, and it's always tough to read those. You do such a great job of like on your Facebook post, the questions you ask, it like elicits good thought. So it's like a double-edged sword. It's always piques good conversation, but then you kind of have to deal with the frustration and disappointment of seeing like some pretty big names in our profession or influential people, and then the way they describe chiropractic philosophy or just the way they define philosophy. And it's good to see it. At least you know where the problem lies, that people can't define their terms, and then they'll sit and argue about the things they can't even define, nor do they care to define. But they're happy to stay in an emotional debate with you rather than enter a rational discussion, which is probably why you didn't see a single comment from me on that post, because I don't care to enter that kind of discussion. Not in that domain anyway.
I kind of look at what I do is take people on a carnival ride and see how people like hang out and how they like act after they come off the roller coaster and go and go into the silly silo, the thing that like you stick to the wall and you spin them around. And sometimes when people get out, they feel like a little wobbly, and sometimes people throw up. That's kind of how I feel about some of the things I post on Facebook, because it's like taking somebody on a slingshot up into the sky and seeing how they act when they come back down. And I think that a lot of times people are like, whoa, that sucked.
Well, I definitely wanted to throw up after I read some of those comments, man.
Yeah. And that's just it. It's like people, you don't have to ask people what they think. They'll tell you what they think. And that's why I love what I do as doing the screenings that I do so much, is because I actually get people to tell on themselves. It's very, very strategic on how I do things. And when I do the engagement on Facebook, it's never for me. I do it because I want to see what the exposure rate is for people to actually tell on themselves, and to give us some clarity on who's willing to step in and who's willing to share, but who has a good sound judgment on what's going on with the profession.
I enjoy the post simply because of the conflict. Like BJ said, conflicts clarify, and it helps me better gauge where, like, I'm not judging those people that are so confused about just what philosophy is etymologically, or any definition really. Jesus, but it's so bad, man. But and like I said, I don't judge those people until I see them adamantly fight the potential to correct their views by aligning them with reality and definitions, right? If you're not going to define your terms, then there's no point in ever having a discussion with someone who refuses to define their terms, because that person has just completely thrown all intellectual responsibility out the window, right? The words can mean whatever I feel they mean right now, and then depending on how the discussion goes, I'll change the meaning so that I can retain my comfort and a good feeling, even if that entails that I have to discard any intellectual responsibility. Those people are not worth having a discussion with. Where an example of those people are, those people, people that everything is subjective. There's no such thing as the truth. It's basically any one of these mutated forms or versions of postmodernism. And they live in their own world where they, in my opinion, are just spiraling the drain.
Well, let's talk a little bit. I know you got your undergrad in philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
How did that translate into when you actually started getting into chiropractic? And did you know that it was going to be something that was going to be so necessary for you as you developed as a leader in this profession?
Man, no, Jim, I had no idea. Actually, I took it simply because it intrigued me. And I can tell you, it's not easy to tell your parents, like, hey, I'm switching from this to stuff to get a degree in philosophy. Yeah, there's not a lot of, I don't know if you've checked the classifieds, not a lot of people looking for philosophers right now. But I'm forever grateful that I did study philosophy. However, when I got into the chiropractic profession, I've told this story a couple of times, but when you get into school, I was already sold on chiropractic because luckily I went to this very young lady. She graduated from Palmer Davenport probably in 2002. And she had a very good mentor, a good parallel curriculum, and really understood the principles and understood chiropractic, its objective, its principles, defined their terms. So good, right? And so I'm there challenging her with a bit of a superiority complex. I have my degree in philosophy, blah, blah, blah. And she tells me she studied philosophy. So I was intrigued. But then as she started telling me it's chiropractic philosophy, I was kind of looking down on it. Like I look back and I laugh at myself. Like I'm so stupid. I'm laughing like this isn't real philosophy. I studied real philosophy. Ooh la la, But as I'm like debating this poor woman every visit, like 3 times a week for 9 weeks. Yeah, it takes like 2 to 3 minutes, check and correct for subluxation when necessary. But like my appointments were minimum 20 minutes, sometimes like, I don't know, an hour. And it was just philosophical debate. So I say it like this. She's highly skilled at detecting and correcting vertebral subluxation. I'm highly skilled at detecting errors in reason, fallacies of logic, right? Like that's what I'm looking for. Hey, these are contradictions. It doesn't. And I sat there and listened to her explain to me chiropractic philosophy, and I couldn't find a single logical inconsistency, no fallacies, no errors in reason. And she didn't show me, by the way, she didn't show me a single research study. I didn't never ask for one. I could care less. If you can deductively validate what you're saying, that's unnecessary. It's like the Pythagorean theorem. I don't need to see a freaking double-blind randomized control study on the Pythagorean theorem. It's because it is deductively valid, right? Its principles or premises hold and draw that conclusion without fallacy. So it's the same for the justification of chiropractic care. And basically 4 months after my first chiropractic correction, in my chiropractic intake with her, 4 months later, I was seated at Palmer, November 2004. And that was it. And I had no idea. Once I started school, and that's where I met you in my second year, I believe. And once I got there, I didn't really know still. I'd heard about the infighting, like this political divide in chiropractic. But like most students, dude, I've got like, hey, we got the exam coming up. Hey, you got this next thing. It's just landmark after landmark. And you're kind of like on handrails the whole time, just like a baby that walks from support points, like a hand on the couch, then it can reach to the next thing. That's what a student is doing. You can't even walk or run. You're just, what's next? What's my next thing? You don't care about the politics. Just pass the exam. Then you got board exams. Then you go blow off steam. So it wasn't until later, then I graduated, and you're struggling as an associate and you're worried about money. Then I started my own business, and anyone like yourself, you know what it's like to start from scratch and grind and put in the time. You're not thinking about those things. So it was only when I had built my team around the chiropractic principles and objective, and the team was sufficient enough, and I could step away more. I like the way you described it. Like, what was it? You can leave the house and the dogs won't tear everything to smithereens when you leave. Yeah. So you can leave. It feels safe. The dog can be left at home alone. So yeah, when I knew, like, I have an amazing team, and if you've met a lot of people on my team, and they're all fantastic. If you ever meet anyone from Top Chiro, I assure you, you'll be impressed with their integrity, um, and I would say their understanding of chiropractic and its principles. Not that they all don't have some room to improve. I do too. But when I compare that to other chiros I meet, young chiros, they're not even close to where my team is. I'm so proud of them, man. We do philosophy calls every week. Not that everyone jumps on them all the time, but we do philosophy calls once a week, so it's quite nice.
Yeah, I've had a chance to see you, as they say in Mexico, when people like get better with their careers and like they become somebody, grow up. That's how they translate in Mexico when they speak English to us. When we like become somebody, they're like, grow up. You've grown up.
Yeah.
And it's been cool to be able to have you see me grow up a bit, and have me be on the other end of the spectrum, seeing you grow up a bit, and seeing how we're both having an impact on what I call the beautiful profession of chiropractic, because it really is. And I think that there's a lot that this profession gives life. It's a life-giving profession. And I think that there's a lot that you and I have, we've gone through the trenches and been through the peaks and valleys, and we've seen the light. And I just think it's really cool that we're here today on this conversation on 628 of the Chiro Hustle podcast, that you've created so many great things for so many great careers, helping so many lives. And I'm just here telling the story over and over and over. And somebody once asked me, is like, hey, does it ever get boring to you to have the same conversation over and over and over? I was like, no, because everybody has something really important and profound to say about why they became who they are and why they're doing what they do. And that's why I knew, like, immediately when you're like, hey, I want to talk about philosophy on a show, I was like, dude, there's probably never a greater experience than to share that time with you, because I really respect how you view this profession and how you positioned yourself and how you've grown up a lot and grown up this profession around you. So it's really nice to be able to actually talk to you about these things. And one of the things I didn't prepare you for, but like, I always hear chiropractors are the first to like circle the wagons and shoot inward.
Mm-hmm.
What is that really like? What is the essence of that for you? And how do we stop that?
I'll give you my take on it, man. It's not, there are other ways that we shoot not everyone circles the wagons and shoots at each other. A lot of people just shoot their own foot off because it's like they've never handled a gun before. So it's a multifaceted. And the way I always look at it is these two shrieking, screaming ends of the political divide within the profession. They have the same thing in common. They actually have the exact same problem. They see themselves as absolute opposites and enemies, but they suffer from the same issue. They both lack understanding. Macaulay, I did my ACP thesis on this, and I called them spiritual extremists and material extremists. But Macaulay just wrote or I don't know, it's actually a while ago. But I just read it. Macaulay wrote this paper, and he called them authoritarians and dismissivists. And I thought that was brilliant. And I'll tell you what I used to perceive the subluxation deniers and these like evidence-based and really aggressive, abrasive individuals as like they're the issue, like because they just anger me the most, I suppose. But it wasn't until later, with a little more reflection and understanding myself, that I realized the cause or the real problem that these guys I previously was like, I don't want anything. These subluxation deniers are ridiculous. They actually just dismiss the philosophy altogether. they're actually the symptom. They're the effects. The cause is much more insidious, and it's from people that, good people, I'm not judging the person, but their irresponsible behavior, their lack of intellectual responsibility, the constant use of our terms and our words without understanding, right? These are what Macaulay calls authoritarians. I call them spiritualist extremists. What they've done is they accept the principles of chiropractic. They accept, the words and the lexicon. However, they misuse them, misrepresent them. You would call these guys, often hear it called bumper sticker philosophy, the spiz wizards, those stage monkeys, and the constant appeal to emotion. They create incredible events, by the way. Everyone's there, light, love, hugging, blah, blah, blah. However, if I were to ask them a single principle besides 1 or 6, they probably don't know them. And if they did know them, they certainly don't understand them. This is, I hear people talk like, just this week or today even, about telling me that with their technique, and this is becoming a very popular technique, and this is what their guru teaches them, that what they do, you see, Jim, is they direct innate. The chiropractor that directs innate. And I swear to God, first, let's just assume that they're talking about innate intelligence, right? Because innate itself is an adjective. It's a descriptor, like a color, like the blue door and the brown door. I opened the blue. The blue what? The blue door. So innate what? Innate intelligence, right? So let's assume they're talking about innate intelligence, and they're claiming that they, as the chiropractor, they direct innate intelligence. Well, how do you direct a non-local phenomenon? So where are you directing it from, and to where are you directing this thing? Innate intelligence is an organizing principle, right? It generates innate force. Innate force operates through or over the nervous system and animal bodies. You are not directing, and even if you could, which you can't because it's not a physical thing, it's intelligence. It's not matter. It's like these people have forgotten the triune, right? So they believe they're directing innate intelligence. And this, how prevalent this is, by the way, within chiropractic is mind-blowing. So they believe they can direct this non-physical thing from a location where it's not to a location where it's not, because then it doesn't exist in a location. Even if you could, let's say you could direct the innate force that it creates, because innate intelligence creates innate force. Let's say you could direct that. Well, how are you going to direct it better? How is your educated intelligence better than innate intelligence? The organizing principle that organizes the 5 signs of life creates life. I don't know better. My educated intelligence, how would it know better than the innate intelligence that creates the mental impulse and operates through or over those nervous system? Like how to make Jim Chester better adapt. How does my educated intelligence make your cells reproduce? How does my educated intelligence direct your innate intelligence to eliminate, assimilate, adapt, grow, and heal better than you are doing? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But they're so desperate to be like a divine healer and take all the responsibility of innate intelligence, but they don't want to take any responsibility of their failures. So it's just terrible for the profession. They don't understand this, yet they tout it with all this religious speak as well, which I'm nothing against religion, but it's not necessary to explain chiropractic. You don't need it. I've never seen a chiropractic miracle, not ever. What I do see are results that to the client feels like a miracle, right? Because if they don't understand the anatomy, the physiology, the biological forces, the internal biological adaptive forces, the destructive external universal, if they don't understand that, what occurred to them is perceived as a miracle. But if I have an understanding, I've never seen a chiropractic miracle.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Excite Medical and the DRX 9000, Chiro HD, Softwave, Bridge Financial, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Imaging Services, Chiro Moguls, The Chiro Speaking Company, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from our full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now, let's hustle.
Period.
Well, I know you come from a very strong era of chiropractors because, once again, I grew up with you guys. You guys were my buddies. I was living in Davenport, Iowa, while you guys were all going through the program and becoming chiropractors, and I believe that was a very fundamental group back then, and strong leadership and just really clear on the profession. And as I've been a part of this for the past 15 years, what I've seen is the schools would start to retire out and would start to give just basically kick people out of the institutions that were doing great and replacing them with like second class educators and bought and sold type characters that are now producing this group of new age chiropractors that want to say that they can control someone else's innate, or saying that subluxations aren't real, or saying whatever they want to pontificate about where their education came from. Yeah. But I think that what it's done is it's caused even more confusion, if it wasn't already a confused group before, when you were in your education times. But now, 15, 16, 17 years removed from that, we're seeing chiropractors that get out, their adjusting skills are limited. Their philosophy is, I don't know. I don't even this is the main premise of this conversation today. Like, they're not getting a foundation of philosophy when they become chiropractors. Yeah. And that's like saying that you believe in God, but you didn't read the Bible, or saying that you have some religious devotion, but you don't go and you don't go to that place and worship. And it's like saying you're a chiropractor, but you can't adjust well and you don't have philosophy. Then what are you?
Yeah. Either of those. Yeah. I'd like to go back to because it'll wrap up what you're saying.
The educators.
Yeah. The educators. Like, I'm not judging them. I'm not saying they're bad people. I know them, and the administrators as well are in a difficult position because they have to comply with certain regulations that they may agree or disagree with. I get that. It's tough. What to do about that politically is a whole nother discussion, maybe another podcast. But as far as the administrators and the teachers in these institutions, it's very true what you said. A lot of the ones that have a problem with this compliance, they end up just getting removed. And so what happens is, in the place of them, you get those people who can't really, and Simon Senson's PhD has just dismantled this entire argument, right? He's a brilliant man. But a lot of them in there, I would say not a single one of them can defend their position on denying subluxation. Not a single one of them. Every argument I hear that it's a historical concept. Well, since when does a word have like an expiration date? Right? Our understanding of diabetes is certainly expanded, so we don't go, hey, let's just throw out the freaking word. You don't just throw the word out because you've learned more about it. You should be celebrating that. So again, it goes back to, I think those people, the effects or the symptoms, what I call the vomit and the diarrhea of the profession, are these subluxation deniers. That's just the normal reaction to a virus, to vomit and throw up. The virus is actually those people that misuse our language, misinterpret it, make it look like a religion. They can't describe innate intelligence. Some of them think they're directing it. They can't describe our principles. They don't know what our objective is. So when that sounds so crazy, it's only and that's the virus I'm claiming. It's normal that this group wants to be as far removed from that as possible. They want to keep those crazies at arm's length, right? The issue is they end up throwing out the baby with the bathwater. That's the dirty bathwater. The people that are misrepresenting, using the words innate intelligence, subluxation, but with zero understanding of it or the chiropractic objective. That's the dirty bathwater. It's the virus-infected water. And what this other extreme end wants to do is throw out all the principles. They don't even bother looking at them. They want to throw out the baby. That's the chiropractic principles and objective. They want to throw the baby out with the dirty bathwater. So I get their position. It's a whole, you almost, to understand the whole thing, you have to be a student of human nature as well. Like why people are motivated to do what they do. A lot of them are probably good people that just want to defend their job, their position, their family. They want to be validated or accepted. And the thing is, it's unfortunate if they actually had this understanding, people on both sides, they'd be so much more empowered. They'd be so much more empowered, but they enter these echo chambers, these realms, the vomit and diarrhea side, the subluxation deniers, they pretty much control the schools, academic institutions, the boards, the regulations, all that shit, associations. The other side, they control the majority of the spiz fests, right? They're the ones shouting from the stage and basically not empowering people with an understanding, but enabling people with a feeling, with a passion, like Jin Tempo would call the jacuzzi experience, right? So until they both resolve this and just actually understand the principles and objective of chiropractic, we're always going to have this issue. So if you're ever looking for a solution, what the correction is, that's what it would be.
So let me ask you a better question then, because I know what it's like to look out and see the dismantling. And I know what it's like to look at and see the confusion in the ranks. I know what it's like to look out and see the schools that have lost their way. And I know what it's like for me to say, well, I wouldn't send anybody to any of that education. I would send them to these places.
Yeah.
And those are the schools that support what I do. And I'm very proud of where I give my money to. Yeah. I support 3 schools actually with my dollars. And I think that that's an important thing to stand on. And I think that when we think about what's happening as the dismantling and the direction that it is right now, mm-hmm. I guess the better question is, why do we need to keep subluxation in the vernacular and in the education? Why do we need to keep philosophy as a foundation for the future of this profession? Why do we need to keep innate intelligence and universal intelligence in the construct of the education for these future students instead of removing it?
Yeah. Well, first let me say this. It doesn't need to be kept in there for the clients, right?
No, not at all.
But for the students, yes. And I'll explain that exactly why. Why we need to keep these principles in there. Remember, principles of fundamental truth, useful in a system or chain of reasoning. Why you need that is so that you can properly perform your job and understand what you're doing. The same reason a pilot needs to know the principles of aerodynamics. Yeah, if you were to suggest to me that I go to pilot school and that we need to start removing the principles of aerodynamics, that's like going to chiropractic school and say we need to remove the principles, the universal principles, the biological principles. And David Koch rewrote the 33 he grouped them into universal principles that no physicist would disagree with, and into biological principles that no biologist would disagree with. To suggest that those principles be removed and the terminology be removed is ridiculous. That's like removing the principles of aerodynamics from pilot school, from flight school. Right. The passenger on the plane doesn't need to understand, man, I'm just going from A to B. I trust that you do this. And I'm glad that they are taught these principles. Clients of chiropractic should be happy when their chiropractor is taught those principles. Here's what happens when they're not. Client comes in, ask them, how does this work? Blah, blah, blah. Because they don't have a deep understanding, they fall back on what? Emotion. Like, if I can't answer your question, I don't have an understanding of what my profession is and what I'm charging you money for, and you're challenging me. Oh, stress. And then there's a reaction. It's either fight or flight. I'm going to get emotionally abrasive with you, or I'm just going to avoid you, ghost you. Oh man, I hope that client doesn't come back and question me. I'm so scared. I feel like a fool. Well, there's a solution. Don't be a fool. But the schools, not all of them, but many of the schools are not doing those students a favor, because they think by removing that, they're doing them a favor. And that means removing everything salutogenic and putting in all this pathogenic stuff. The curriculum is being filled with more and more requirements to serve a pathogenic curriculum rather than the salutogenic model, right? So that's why I think subluxation, innate intelligence, all those principles need to remain. That's what distinguishes us from this other form of care. Like, caring for the sickness is very different than caring for the person. Caring for the illness and disease, well, those things should be in a curriculum for that school so they can successfully do that stuff. That's fantastic. However, in chiropractic, to meet the chiropractic objective, well, then that curriculum should be filled with salutogenic themed topics and subjects. And you keep removing them, then there is no chiropractic. It's just one of many other, and there are dozens of them. That's just another pathogenic care model.
Well, I know that you've done an amazing job of seeing problems as well as I have. And we're very much solution oriented, which I absolutely love about us teaming up today on today's conversation, because I really believe that when you see a problem, you do solution. You're like, all right, well, that's not working. We're going to do it this way. Like, if you and I were like taking something apart and putting something back together, we'd like figure out like how to get the rusty bolt off something. And I'd be like, Travis, we need some of that. And you might want to get in there because, you have a better angle on it. And I think that as like conversation mechanics, and understand the construct of this profession as well as you do, and the landscape that I travel on with this message that we do. I was just introduced. This is really cool, man. I was just introduced at the Michigan Association of Chiropractic. I spoke there. I was telling you, it's a 2.5 hour talk. It's the longest I've ever talked in front of a group of people before. And the lady introduces me. She says, if you took every state association, every international association, every college, and you wrap them all into one, Chiro Hustle gets more traffic and attention than all of them combined. I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. And when you think about the vast numbers of people that have like actually caught on to what we're doing over here at Chiro Hustle, I tell people this very, very matter of factually. If you don't listen to any of the episodes, just please listen to the first 2 minutes. Just listen to the big why we do what we do with chiropractic, and you're going to have a better understanding of what this profession is important for.
Yeah.
And I think that just knowing that we've had such a reach, and now today we have this conversation, which I think might be one of the most profound episodes we've ever done, just because the honesty and the truth and the amount of facts, not feelings, that we're sharing today. And I think that that's very critical. And there is a lot of critical thinking that's gone into today's conversation about something that matters to both of us, and that's the future of this profession. And solution based, you're like, well, that's not good enough. I'm going to create my own school. And you're like, solution based, that's not good enough. I'm going to create my own best-selling book. Well, solution based, that's not good enough. I'm going to create a chiropractic family called Top Chiro that goes out there and follows these principles. I would like to like wrap up today's Chiro Hustle episode with Top Chiro. I know it's your brainchild, it's your family, it's your love for this life. Talk about Top Chiro and why you started it.
Whew, man. Well, like you said, I want to be solution oriented. I like the example you gave about we find this rusty bolt. You and I are like, how do we get that off? You see so many other people in the profession, they'll go like, well, we need to make all the bolts rusty so that they're equal now. To me, that's not a solution. Now they're all stuck. Or just ignore the rusty bolt and throw the whole thing out. I'm not giving up on this profession. I know it's probably easy to do, and some people, I don't blame them for it. But when I graduated, I think, I went to Malaysia right away. I worked there for a year. That gave me something incredibly powerful, like because I was living in the middle of a fruit forest jungle, no toilet, no shower. I had like a hose for a shower, no kitchen. It was basically a wooden shed with stray dogs.
I talk to your friends and they tell me, I think Travis has lost his mind.
Yeah, probably. But what I did out there in Malaysia, I actually sharpened my mind, regained my mind. And that's when I learned the real power of what chiropractic is. And I lived on the other side of the world in a third world country, didn't know a soul. But that's when I learned, if you're just a person of value, that there's plenty of people around that will take care of you. And it took care of me. And so then I wanted to create a company of value and a team of value. So once I got to the Netherlands from there, after a year, I worked for this company, and it was horrible, Jim. Like the ethos there, it was pain-based model. I was miserable. I've never been so depressed in my life. I mean, I just graduated chiropractic school, and I'm thinking, and by the way, I was being paid very well, very well. I was seeing about 320 a week. And I enjoyed time with my patients, but the work environment was nightmarish. There wasn't a single person in this company that was happy. The guy had 5 or 6 offices, every CA, every chiropractor, miserable. And I thought, this is not how it's supposed to be. That was the rusty bolt. And I was like, I'll create my own whole freaking vehicle here. This is ridiculous. And then it started out like, I really enjoyed taking in young chiropractors from garbage schools and with polluted ideas about what chiropractic is, and just basically rehabbing the mindset of young chiropractors. And when I look at the team now, like I look at them with incredible pride. And we all have I got things I still need to improve and work out. So like my team's not perfect, but and when I look at them, it's probably like what a parent sees when they look at their kids. They're like, oh my God, they do no wrong. And sometimes that's my fault. I look at them and cheerlead them a bit too much when I need to really hold them a bit more accountable and have more tough talks with them like a dad. Sometimes I have to use my dad voice. But that's what I created Top Chiro for. Was I wanted to create a representation of what chiropractic should be. Just objective straight. It's, if you've ever read Refined by Fire by Joe Strauss, objective straight is the most defensible position and the most long-lasting position within this profession ever, right? Objective straight versus traditional straight versus mixed. You hear all these debates, and I'm not putting down any of those. But when it comes to, like, can you defend your position based on critical thinking, reasoning, logic? Can you systematically defend your position? Well, you're going to struggle if you're a traditional straight or a mixer. The objective straight has the most simple, I don't want to call it limited scope. It's like a specific scope. And because it's so specific, it's the most defensible because it doesn't deal in all these like other accessory ideas.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that there's a great deal that we had a chance to discuss today. Not just chiropractic, but the laws of life, and almost 2 decades of friendship. And I admire so much about what you do, Travis. To hold this space over here and to do what we do for this 628 episodes, it's a love. It's a labor of love to me. And everybody's always curious. Well, how do you make money doing what you do, Jim? And I always tell people it's not about the money, it's about the message. And I really believe that I tell people this a lot, like if you want to make $1 million, help 1 million people.
Yeah.
And we crossed 1 million downloads 2 years ago for our show. And I think that if anybody ever wants to find success, do something that you really love and stick to it and become the best at it in the world. And that's what I see in you, Travis, is you found something you love, and you stick to it, and you're becoming the best in the world at it. And that's why your colleagues respect you. That's why you have had a chance to be in leadership positions with different international organizations. And that's why you get a chance to be admired by your team and Chiro Hustle, and I thank you so much for your time today and your willingness to talk about tough subjects and exposing some of these elephants in the room, as I call them, and the topics that no one else wants to talk about. And
yeah, dude, it's not easy. Like we've been friends forever, and I love every time we run into each other at conferences. It's just great. I don't know how to describe it to other people, right? Because we go way, way back, and but it's never easy to talk. Like, I know you've probably got expect miracles tattooed somewhere on you, and I know it's like a lot of people don't want to hear about that, or they don't want to have those conversations. But like every time I speak to you, even if we disagree, like I always feel safe. I feel cared for. So as long as that's in place, I don't have to defend myself. I'm just getting educated. I'm just seeing your perspective, and I love that you feel the same way around me. And that's why let me say that you say all these nice words, and I thank you for that. But you're creating a good space where I know and at least for me anyway, I feel I can speak with you freely about these things. Yeah, that's an exception in this profession. There are people who get quickly irate, emotional, abrasive, or worse. I don't mind people being abrasive to my face. But worse is when they just kind of ignore you, go around, and then it's behind your back. They're like, I didn't like what he said. And so they take it up with everyone around you, behind you. And there's a lot of that in the profession too. So let me just say how much I appreciate you and our friendship and the environment you've created here on this podcast.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, Travis, I never did it for me. I did it because I saw a very important part of this profession that was suffering. And that was a journalistic approach to bring everybody in. Like I tell people this constantly, like you could practice torque release technique. You could be an upper cervical specific. You can be a flying sevens chiropractor. You can graduate from National. You can graduate from Palmer. You can graduate from Life West or any of the colleges over in the UK. But what we've done is we brought everybody under one roof, and we do it for the cause of the profession. And I think that that's what makes this so honorable is you could be a DE doctor, you could be a New Beginnings doctor, you could go to CalJam, you could be a ChiroFest guy, but everybody, a Mile High person, but everybody that we've interviewed, we bring under the Chiro Hustle flag, and we invite everyone in, and we let them be heard and acknowledged and seen for who they are, why they do what they do. And I think it's a very unique perspective because no one's ever united this profession the way that we have with this voice for chiropractic. So thank you for seeing that.
Pleasure, man. It's someone wrote in the comments here, misplaced your book. Oh, you can find my book on restoringreason.com. If you go to www.restoringreason.com, there's a link up there at the top that clicks you to your local Amazon. And for those that might want the book, but you're not sure, I think you can still download like the first chapter from that website and just see if it's your type, if it's what you're looking for.
Restoringreason.com, Brian. Check it out, restoringreason.com. Travis, very, very awesome opportunity to connect with you. I'll see you in a few short days out in Sparkle City. We'll be out there at the center of the chiropractic universe. And here, Johnny put the link here so you guys can see it on the screen there.
He's a legend. I don't know if you've interviewed him before, haven't you?
Oh yeah. Johnny Collar. I just went and visited him last October in Barcelona, and the Chiropractic Y, check him out. Does a lot for the profession too.
Indeed.
Well, my friends and family, this is episode 628. I think there's nothing else to cover today. And check out Travis's book, restoringreason.com. And if you like what we do, please comment, share, and like, and subscribe to us on your favorite streaming platforms. And as I always close out, I always tell people, you're just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.